Sometimes your own mind can be a terrifying place. It's the one thing we can't ever truly escape, and with disorders like depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, and psychosis, it can genuinely feel like a hopeless hell. Enter double feature day 4 of 13 on the countdown to Halloween. Today's theme, the frayed mind. Right off the bat, I'd like to recognize that the frayed mind might come off as insensitive, but in these movies, it is definitely accurate. The people in these movies are at their wits' end in dire rock-bottom situations caused by their mental disorder. In this case, both films are looking at schizophrenia. Now, it may seem like a spoiler to say that both of these movies are on people with schizophrenia, because that seems like the kind of thing most movies save as a twist at the end to say, oh, it wasn't even real, it was a diagnosable disorder. But the thing that's unique about these two movies is, from the get-go, you know that it is not real. It's really interesting, and we'll get into it more with each movie. The first movie is They Look Like People from 2015. In They Look Like People, a man connects with his best friend who's been estranged for quite some time. He's basically living on the street, the man, not the best friend, and he wants to crash with his friend for a little bit. Now, They Look Like People doesn't explicitly state that what is perceived by the man is not real, but it is heavily implied just by the way it's shot and the way the story unfolds. The fact that he gets these phone calls from a mysterious benefactor only when no one is around to hear the phone calls. He also sees physical manifestations on people when no one else is around to also witness them. And again, this is one of those movies that if it played out a different way, was just slightly tweaked in the writing room, it could be one of those, is this real or is it in this guy's head? And that is the question you're trying to answer throughout the movie, but that's not how they go. In They Look Like People, it's actually, in my opinion, a much better take on this genre, which is, this man is troubled and he is escalating in his behavior, but he's not a bad person. He's a very sweet person. And the relationship that him and his friend have is so realistic and adorable, of like young adult, like early to mid 20s adult men having, they get drunk and they have like balled up sock wars, and everything is so normal and wholesome. But one of them secretly believes people around him are being replaced by lizard people, and he will hear an auditory hallucination as well as sometimes these visual hallucinations that back it up. He hears this strong cacophonous flying of insects whenever one of these replaced people are around. And this benefactor on the phone will call him and tell him that he's been chosen. He's to prepare and acquire weapons and stockpile munitions for when the transition of people to lizard people has reached enough to where they'll rise up and start overtly taking over humanity. It is almost... The thing that makes this a horror movie is there's really only a few moments that are images or scenarios where it's horror in your face. And really, the main one that comes to mind comes so late in the movie. This movie is more about just the horror of being trapped in your mind like that. And in this one, the man doesn't know that he has a problem. He's got undiagnosed schizophrenia. In the latter movie, that's not the case, which makes it even more interesting, but we'll get to that in a second. They Look Like People makes you look at people around you and wonder who among them might be fighting this kind of invisible, terrifying war against their own mind, and they don't even know that it's against their own mind. It's just such a good movie. I've watched it. I think I watched it for the first time about 2 years ago, and since then I've watched it at least 6 times. It doesn't sound like it's a feel-good movie, but it's so wholesome. And despite some very scary behavior from the main character. He is not a scary guy. He's a really nice, sweet guy. And like I said, the relationship between the friends and how they talk, it's also natural. The way it's written is incredible, absolutely incredible. Movie number 2 tonight is 2021's Fear of Rain. Now, the key difference in this one is the main character, Rain, actually knows she has been diagnosed with schizophrenia. Now, Rain has a checklist, I believe it was 3 things, that she runs through whenever there is any doubt whatsoever that what's happening might be real or not. And I don't remember what they are. I don't remember what all 3 of them are, but one is definitely look around. Is anyone else reacting to what's happening? And the other one is, or another one is it a plausible thing to be happening in this setting? Again, I don't remember the 3rd one. It's been a bit since I saw Fear of Rain, but they come up on screen when she's interacting with people or witnessing things, and they're like handwritten in Rain's handwriting, visually represented as she goes through her checklist whenever she's going through. Now, they look like Rain. The Fear of Rain has been praised from a lot of different reviewers and sources, saying that it is an incredibly sensitive portrayal of schizophrenia. I personally don't know anyone who has schizophrenia. I don't have schizophrenia, so I have to kind of go by what I've read from people who do have experience in the field. And by all accounts, it's a really sensitive portrayal and a really realistic portrayal of schizophrenia and living with schizophrenia. Now, Fear of Rain does allow for that twist. So in They Look Like People, the question is not whether or not what the man is seeing is real. It's, will he be able to pull himself out of this mental space with the help of his friend to see that it's not real before he actually does do something terrible. Like, well, I won't say what, but before something terrible happens due to this condition. Fear of Rain goes a little bit different. Rain, obviously diagnosed with schizophrenia, knows that things that she sees can sometimes not be real, and it actually starts out with an extremely full-on abduction sequence that happens to be just entirely in her mind. It's very Disturbia Rear Window. She is seeing what she believes is a kidnapped child in her neighbor's house. Her neighbor, who's also a teacher at her school, if I recall correctly. The checklist, and it's inconclusive as to whether or not this is actually happening. She also makes friends with a kid at school who has these weird quirks about him, which mean she's basically through the entire movie, she's not entirely sure if this kid is real or just a facet of her investigative imagination. He's played by Israel Broussard, I think Broussard. I think that's how you would pronounce it. Maybe Broussard. He's from Happy Death Day 1 and 2. He's in Happy Death Day. He's the guy whose dorm the lead wakes up in. He's also the pseudo antagonist in the Hulu Into the Dark Blumhouse. It wasn't really a mini-series. It was more like an anthology film series, if you've seen those. All That We Destroy. Also, Dora Madison Burge was in that movie, and she's a horror queen at this point. And then the lead in Fear of Rain is Madison Iseman. She's in the Jumanji remakes. She's the one that Jack Black turns into, or she's the one that turns into Jack Black when they go into the game. She's also in the I Know What You Did Last Summer remake and Goosebumps 2. She's in a bunch of stuff. I'm just mostly naming horror-ish movies because that's probably what this audience will be most familiar with. So in this one, the question isn't, is she sick? It's not, will she realize she's sick? She is sick, and she knows she's sick. It's whether or not what she's seeing is real, which is kind of, actually, you know what, I think I might have lied to you a little bit by accident, because that's exactly what I said these movies aren't. But it's different because she knows she's sick. She has tools to discern whether or not things are actually occurring to her, in front of her, around her. And yet she still can't be entirely sure that this Disturbia Rear Window scenario is in her mind, because it's just not quite fitting in the checklists. They aren't being either verified or denied by it. And it's a really tense movie, actually. Well, I had my dad isn't really a big horror fan. He doesn't do well with horror. This one is definitely more on the side of thriller than horror, but I remember after I had him and my mom watch it, because I was so happy with it, and I had everyone in my family watch it actually, and he said it made him so sad because he felt it was such a logical, realistic portrayal of someone with schizophrenia. He felt bad not only for Rain but for people that have it, and I think it's really rare for movies to portray anything so sensitively and realistically that you feel bad for people you don't know because they might live like this. It's a good movie, people. And there you have it. That's your double feature homework for today. Basically a double feature on people, really nice people who really want to do the right thing, but their minds are working against them. It's definitely not going to be a cheery night watching these two, even though I said they look like people is like wholesome. It is wholesome, but at the same time, it's really disturbing and sad and depressing. Both of them are. Both of them are. Just watch them. Watch these ones, and I'll see you tomorrow with the next double feature.